Is the first view of a portfolio a hiring manager? I was told it's a recruiter who's the first user.
This depends on the company and their recruitment process structure. There can be both. If this is a bigger organization, I guess it would be probably a recruiter. I've heard some stories from hiring manager because of the size of the company and a number of applications. They created some sort of scorecard or a checklist for an HR person to review, because like the first scanning, it's like a resume, checking if you have those fundamental things in your portfolio before it goes to the hiring manager. But it can be also done by a hiring manager. You need to be prepared for both. And if you avoid jargon and trying to like buzzwords in your portfolio, you should be fine. You need to tell a story in a clear way so that recruiter or anyone will understand this.
Perfect. One that we get all the time when we talk about portfolios is, how do you present projects that you signed an NDA on?
I have a whole guide about this. It all depends on your NDA. I would start from reading my NDA because they can be different. Some are more strict, for instance, governmental projects or something like this. Some are less strict. So you need to figure this out first, research the chat with ChatGPT or consult with a lawyer. Secondly, you can also negotiate even before signing on the job and also after. I wouldn't be so afraid to ask because in the worst case scenario, they will say no. But it's better to ask and explain why you need it, because you need to show your work. And I think in this competitive market, it's very difficult for anyone to go through the process without this portfolio. So don't be afraid to ask about this. And if you already know what are your constraints when it comes to the NDA, there are different ways of dealing with this. I think the most popular one is the password protection. I think it's the laziest and easiest way of dealing with this stuff. The problem is that if you optimize for this time to value, and for even entering and finding the password, you need the time. So I would rather try to avoid this method and maybe even consider PDF or a live presentation that you can turn off later. But you need to think about this process and the user. Sometimes people rebrand the project, sometimes they generalize the story. If you generalize the story, I think the key part is to inform that you done a project under NDA, which actually from my analysis, they don't do it. And I think this is very a silly mistake, because if you inform a person this is under NDA, there will be put into the context. This is why this story is more general. And also think about where you are in your career, like what is your chance to get this interview, because the less credibility you have, the more difficult it will be for you to pass with a generalized story in your NDA project. There are other methods. We could discuss this forever, but I think these are the main ones.
I think this probably will knock a lot of those questions off. What is the most common mistake you see in a portfolio?
Oh, I love this question. I could talk about this forever. The most important mistake. I think lack of story. Maybe problem is that people don't understand what is storytelling, but basically I think sharing very generic statements, writing very generally, not going deep into explaining design decisions. I think this is the most common issue, together with the visual part that is also lacking a lot of time. Yeah, I think these are the two most common mistakes I've been seeing.
So they're just basically following the define or empathize,
Yeah,
define, ideate, like that, and then it's
yeah.
just, yeah.
And the descriptions are very general. Like I could take the description and put into my own portfolio, or probably yours or anyone here, and it would fit. So we want to avoid this. I think we are doing a great job, because I'm seeing more and more portfolios being more based on stories, but I know that this is also a skill to practice. Also, don't put a pressure on yourself if you feel like your story is not that. I mean, you will not nail it at first. It just requires some writing, iterations, learning how to write, how to tell the story. So it's also a process.
One of the ones that I see a lot is when folks just use the H1 or the hero title in their portfolio and they go, "Hi, I'm Chris." And it's like,
Yeah, this one.
complete waste of space. And like, no, you want to get into it, time to value. Saying
Yes.
hi in your name is usually not the best way. I would prefer you look at it like any other website that you go online on the internet. If your portfolio is a website, even in your PDF, the introduction can be a bit better. Is that you say, okay, well, what's the difference between Framer, Squarespace, and Webflow? Let's go into all of those landing pages and just read their headline, and it's completely different. They do the same goddamn thing, but they position themselves and they sell themselves differently. You can do that with almost any other product, like project management tools, chat apps, whatever it is. If you just go into 3 homepages, you'll see how they do it and have that sort of in the back of your mind. How do I stand out from the Chris number 2, who's another designer, right?
Yeah, we all love your names. I mean, I love mine, for instance. This is one of the few things I like, but no one cares. I mean, you have already introduced yourself in a resume, in an application, so there is no need to repeat yourself. I think another common mistake, which is when people actually don't tell a story about them and their contribution, but they are selling.
Want to listen to the full conversation? Click the video on screen now. Subscribe to the channel if you want to join us live. Oh, wait. Okay, fine, you don't have to join us for the live stream, but if you like stuff like this, then click that subscribe button. I'll see you on the inside. Bye!